Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed right here on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. And joining us this afternoon, we have Joyce, Managing Director on Nasdaq's Market Intelligence Desk, to discuss technical levels in the Nasdaq-100 as it hits yet another all-time intraday high, with tech stocks leading the way. Brian, it seems to be nothing stopping the Nasdaq-100 for the moment. Let's take a look at a couple charts here, starting with the daily. What are some levels that you're continuing to look at?
Well, I mean, we're in new record high territory once again. So, there's really nothing above that's, a clear, obvious resistance level. You could probably put up some Fibonacci projections, but I wouldn't even call those, big resistance levels. Those are kind of used more as a secondary tool, at least for me. The NDX, as we know, it's having a phenomenal year. It finished July as the top performing major benchmark in that month, up 7.4%. It's up another 3.5% this month. As of the end of July, it's been outperforming the Dow by 32 percentage points. It's the largest since 2009. And before that, it goes back to 1998 and 99. And growth over value is outperforming by 31 percentage points, which is a record outperformance margin. So Nasdaq 100 captures a lot of that growth movement. And as you can see, like we said, it's making new record highs and just, true V-shaped rally off of the lows.
All right, let's pull up your first chart here, the Nasdaq-100 on the daily.
Right, okay, so as you can see here, we had a 2-week sideways range dating back to early to mid-July, and this week we're popping out from above that range. Just last week when we were speaking, the daily RSI was testing support down at the 53 level, and let's call it 6 trading sessions. It's back up now, approaching that overbought 70 reading. So just for the last, 3 or 4 months, just constantly, as you can see, this momentum trading in the upper end of the bullish range. And that's something that, longs absolutely want to see. And again, because we're in new highs, there's really nothing obvious from a resistance standpoint to hold this back.
All right. And of course, relative to the S&P 500.
So relative to the S&P 500, we look at our ratio chart, and as you can see, we had a brief pullback here that was reflecting the sideways trading the last couple of weeks. We're seeing a bit of a rotation into some of those underperforming groups like financials and industrials. It's been somewhat temporary. As you can see on the way up, we've seen these minor pullbacks, and that's what we've saw the last couple of weeks. But we're now beginning to outperform again. So this ratio is moving higher. These are all-time highs as well. If we put this on, say, a longer-term monthly period chart going back 25 years, we'll see that the ratio is well above now those highs from 2000.
All right, and you also take a look at breadth weekly too. What are you looking at there?
Yeah, this is one thing to note, and we've been highlighting this, for many, many weeks now, to be honest with you. Initially we were talking about the expanding breadth, which is nice to see, but always noted that the number of 52-week highs was still below the highs that we saw in the first quarter, which is about 31% of the index when price was around 9,700. Now we're up to 11,250. But we're only seeing about this week, about 14% of the index. It got up to about 15, 18%, making new 52-week highs. It's down from where it was just a month ago, up around 27%. So it's a divergence. It's a bearish divergence. But again, price is king, and price is proving to march higher. It just tells us now that there's fewer and fewer stocks driving these gains. I looked at the numbers as of yesterday, and the top 4 companies in the index were making up about 65% of the gains, and the top 6 were making up about 75%. So there are fewer and fewer companies driving this higher. Again, it's just a divergence. We could certainly see the rotation, even within tech and within growth and within the NDX, move to those other underperforming stocks that can take the leadership baton, so to speak, and it can help continue to drive this higher. So again, it's a bearish divergence, but price is king and price is going up.
All right, Brian, and to wrap up here, I realize it's not part of the Nasdaq-100, but it's been really interesting to watch Bitcoin over the past few weeks. What are you getting out of the technicals from there?
Yeah, so we liked it a lot last week when we were highlighting the potential breakout that was just emerging from what we call the cluster of technical resistance. And here we are. This is the weekly period chart. We were breaking out from this resistance, the dashed blue line. It was a top back in the fall and the first quarter of 2020, the fall of 19, the first quarter of 2020. That was about the 9,900 level. We broke out of that last week, and we're seeing upside follow through this week. We are now running into the top of this little consolidation range, which we saw in mid-2019. And if we note back from the initial decline from its all-time highs, when we bottomed back in Feb 18, the initial rebound did stall at this 11.8, 11.9 level. And that's currently where we find ourselves today. So it'll be interesting to see how much resistance this proves to be. It's kind of hard to say. Bitcoin's up, I think, about 24% this month and 66% year to date. Coming off of last year was up 95%. So we know this asset can certainly have strong, phenomenal moves. And because there's resistance right here, expected resistance, doesn't necessarily mean it has to slow it down. It could just knife right through it and continue higher.
All right, Brian, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining me on Trade Talks.
Thank you, Jill.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.